Everyone. Today I'm going to show you the demonstrations of Apigee API Hub. I'm going to get started with the console. Over here, you can see that I have chosen the Dino Lab as an example of my console, and I'm going to navigate into the section called API Hub over here. So first of all, I'm going to click on the Get Started with API Hub tab. And the API Hub is the sub-feature within Apigee that allow us to register all of the API metadata across my organization. If I can slowly scroll down here, you can see that how the API Hub will be able to allow me to categorize the type of API based on the style, based on the theme, the target user, the business unit, maturity level, and so on. Now you can definitely go into more details to see some of the tutorial of how do you make use of API Hub in more details. The next thing that I want to go over is to click on the setting, and over here you can see multiple tab options that allow you to further configure the API Hub. So starting with the attributes, the API Hub as shown here do provide some of the by default attributes that determines what exactly metadata that you can associate with the API that you register into the API Hub. So for example, over here, you see that there's an API style, right? Over here, I have limited rights to perform an edit, but you will be able to see the example of REST API, MCP, and so on is editable here. Additionally, in case if you need to have additional user-specific attributes in addition to the system one, you can create an attribute here as well. As you can see in the example that over here, we have several additional attributes, and those attributes allow me to also enter a set of different value against it. Now, API Hub will automatically ingest the API based on the existing runtime, which is all the API with the proxy under the same Apigee organization. But also, if you like to, you can attach another runtime project, another GCP project, so that this metadata residing within the other project can also be imported into the hub itself. Moving on, if you would like to, you can also bring additional API from other gateway, including Apigee Edge for Private Cloud, OPDK, and so on, including the third-party plugin instance, and that allow your multi-gateway strategy to be centralized into the API Hub. And over here, I have an example page that demonstrate how would you potentially be able to ingest the API metadata from Azure API Management into the API Hub. And so that API Hub will serve as a central repository for all of your API. Moving on, I want to show you the demonstration is that you can enable some of the add-ons into the API Hub. For example, the spec boost that allow to leverage on AI to boost and improve the readability of the OpenAPI specifications. I'll come to the demo shortly, but you can also see the linter as well as semantic search. The next one that I want to show you is going to the semantic search. So think about semantic search as a mini Google search engine across your API. So in addition that you can search based on the title as well as the description, we can literally type, show me all the APIs related to orders. It will be super helpful if you have thousands of API. That may not be a big deal if you only have 10 or 20 API, but it will be a super helpful in the case, even though the orders is not just showing within the order specific API, but then you notice that the logistic API that is associated to order will also appear. The next one that I want to show you is the list of API itself. Over here, you can see that you can specifically choose whether the API is based on the REST or the MCP. So I'm going to click on the all style, but you can also specifically filter the API based on the attributes. Remember the system attribute that just now we mentioned about. So I'm going to choose API style. And in this, maybe I'm not going to choose API style. I'm going to choose the maturity level, and I'm going to choose high. You can see that it will then list all the API maturity level. Now I can then further click on the API itself. In this example, I'm going to choose the customer refund API. Within the customer refund API, you can see that there are several different tab itself. I can look at the version that associate to this API. In this example, I happen to have a 3 version. The version 1 is currently on the life cycle of production, meaning that it's ready to use by the other team. I may also have a subsequent operation, the API operations that associate to it, as well as a specification file, the Open API specs file that is related into it. Now, if you remember just now I mentioned about a feature called boosted, the spec boost. So imagine that this is the original Open API specs that I uploaded, and this is the boosted specification that the AI helped me to improve it further. So I can click this button and click view difference, and boom, look at it. This is the example of suggested description that I should update with the following. And it also suggests me to define the server, suggested me to define a summary over here, as well as the example, so that it not only the Open API spec is more readable, but also enables the agentic experience to be able to discover the API easier. Similarly, there's another feature add-on called linting. So it is also a sanitary, it's also a sanitized the linting process of ensuring that our Open API is adhering to certain standards. So this is based on the spectral linting, and if it doesn't, it may show you a warning or an error and so on. So if I were to click on the deployment, you will notice that this particular API, it's deployed in this example, this happens to be the cloud endpoint, but then also I can associate the deployment into another API management solutions. And with the deployments option, it determines the actual endpoints that I'm able to access, and I can associate that deployments into the version itself. That's all for a moment. Thank you for your attention. I look forward to see you in the next video.